promoting a healthy environment. It's the air we breathe. Clean, safe water. Responsible management of our natural resources. We protect and restore for a sustainable future. Environment matters.
The process of obtaining and transporting our resources is an old concern of this area.
Public hearings are an important part in the process of determining how the DEP proceeds with various permits, certifications, and regulations, how that works, and how you can make your voice heard. Plus,
we have seen the benefits of this monitoring network time and time again. This partnership is excellent in that we can share information, and it's the downstream water utilities typically that benefit from that information.
an additional layer of source water protection as a new monitoring station for volatile organic compounds goes online in the Elk River, part of a network of detection equipment that helps monitor the Ohio River watershed. Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Environment Matters. I'm Greg Adolphson. As with the Mountain Valley Pipeline, the DEP has decided to waive the individual 401 certification for the proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Section 401 of the Clean Water Act allows states an opportunity to ensure federal permitting actions will comply with state water quality standards. The Clean Water Act gives the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers the authority to issue and enforce stream crossing and wetland permits. Waiving the 401 certification does not, however, mean fewer environmental requirements for the construction of the pipeline. The Corps of Engineers can also issue a general permit, called Nationwide 12 permit, which is typically used for common activities like highway or utility construction. The special West Virginia conditions placed on the pipeline's Nationwide 12 permit are designed to mirror what would be in a 401 individual certification issued by the state of West Virginia. Here's the important part. Under the nationwide permit, enforcement would be left to the federal agencies and would be limited to just stream crossings. The DEP has an additional environmental protection tool to use for pipeline construction projects called the Construction Stormwater Permit that, if used, will give the agency wide-range inspection and enforcement authority over the entire project. The DEP's Construction Stormwater Permit was created 5 years ago to address pipeline construction activities that were otherwise exempt from federal environmental regulations. By combining the West Virginia special conditions in the Corps of Engineers Nationwide Permit with the much broader regulatory oversight in the DEP's Pipeline Construction Stormwater Permit, West Virginia will see a much greater level of inspection and enforcement on this large project that is not available in any surrounding state. The proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline would run through parts of Harrison, Lewis, Pocahontas, Randolph, and Upshur counties. The DEP held 2 public hearings on the pipeline's construction stormwater permit in December, one at Buchanan Upshur High School and one at Pocahontas County High School, to hear public comments on the proposed projects. As we mentioned earlier, public hearings are an important part of determining how the DEP proceeds with various permits, certifications, and regulations. The DEP's Jake Glantz joins us now with a look at how the process works.
Greg, the DEP wrapped up its public hearings on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and the proposed Mountaineer Express Pipeline in December. DEP public hearings follow a very specific format. Here's what you can expect if you plan to attend or comment at one.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jake Glantz from the Department of Environmental Protection's Public Information Office. Welcome to tonight's public hearing on the Construction Stormwater Permit for the Mountaineer Express Pipeline. The permit number is WVR 310872.
And that's how it typically begins, with an introduction and an explanation of the topic of the hearing. Participants who want to speak or present written comments register at the sign-in sheet before the hearing starts. Then they're introduced and their comments recorded and transcribed and then entered into the public record.
The process of obtaining and transporting our resources is an old concern of this area.
If there are a large number of people registered to speak, there may be a time limit set on individual speakers. The agency lists public notices of permit applications and renewals on its website and in newspapers in the counties where the project is located. Any interested person can submit comments directly to the DEP or request a public hearing within 30 days of the date of the public notice. In this instance, the public notice was sent out on November 9th. The public comment period was established from November 17th through December 17th, and the public hearing was held December 12th at Ripley High School. All comments received during the public comment period are considered prior to the DEP acting on the permit application. Here are some suggestions for making the most of the public comment time. Keep your comments limited to the specific issue covered by the hearing and have notes to refer to when you speak. And always try to submit your comments in writing. Correspondence should include the name, address, and telephone number of the writer and a concise statement of the issues raised. Submitting your comments in writing does not prevent you from making a public statement during the hearing. DEP representatives attending the hearing do not answer specific questions during the formal session. Well, Greg, the best time to request a public hearing is at the beginning of the comment period that follows the public notice of application. You must submit a written request to the DEP in time for the agency to organize a public meeting. An informational meeting can be requested anytime there are concerns about any environmental issue within the DEP's jurisdiction that needs to be clarified or addressed. For Environment Matters, I'm Jake Glantz.
Thanks, Jake. A train derailment in Harrison County spilled coal into a tributary of the West Fork River. It happened on December 14th on the property of the Harrison Power Plant. 9 cars of a CSX train derailed and 2 of the cars went into Robinson Run, spilling coal into the stream. Coal from some of the other derailed cars spilled into the bank. A team from the DEP's Environmental Enforcement Section was on the scene and will be conducting water sampling both upstream and downstream of the derailment site. The nearest public water intake is 54 miles downstream in Morgantown. The water in Robinson Run, which is very narrow and shallow at the derailment site, was pumped around the spill to limit contamination. It's a network of monitoring instruments called the Organics Detection System, and it's been helping protect water in the Ohio Basin and its major tributaries for the last 40 years. Now there's a new monitoring station located on the Elk River. The DEP's Mike Huff has the details.
It's not much to look at, just a box, some plumbing, and a computer. But the important work it's doing is happening on the inside. It's part of Orsanco's Organics Detection System, which is a network of connected monitoring stations located throughout the Ohio River Basin. It's designed to detect the presence of volatile organic compounds at low-level concentrations in the water. The network began operating in 1978.
In 1977, there was an unreported spill. And since the spill was unreported, it moved along the Ohio River and did get into some water intakes unknowingly. And after the fact, Orsanco and the water utilities determined to establish a network to monitor for these unreported spills and be more proactive.
The Organics Detection System has 17 monitoring stations located on the Ohio, the Allegheny, the Monongahela, the Kanawha, and now the Elk River. The system operates much like a smoke detector in your house.
When something is detected, we note the presence of something, we look to see that it is at a quantifiable level, which for our system, the quantifiable level are well beneath any finished drinking water standards. So we're monitoring the river water, the source water, or the raw water. What happens then is the ODS host site will notify Orsanco. We also have the ability to remotely access the systems, but they're the first line of defense. So they will notify us that they've seen something or they've seen a pattern of a detectable compound, and then we will make the notifications to our downstream ODS partners, or actually other water utilities or industries of concern that have drinking water or drinking water purveyors.
The monitoring stations use gas chromatographs, which are a type of analytical instrument that can detect and identify a specific suite of chemicals from a sample of river water.
So essentially what it's doing is it's basically sniffing for these things, right?
Exactly, exactly. There are a lot of compounds that are colorless, tasteless, and odorless. So if you're not proactively monitoring, they may be missed.
The Organics Detection System is an extra layer of source water protection in addition to a water utility's existing monitoring systems. Orsanco provides the equipment, and it's operated and monitored by the host facility. In this case, West Virginia American Water's Kanawha Valley Water Treatment Plant in Charleston. West Virginia American Water's Huntington plant has been part of the system since the beginning.
Particularly at our Huntington location, we have seen the benefits of this monitoring network time and time again. This partnership is excellent in that we can share information, and it's the downstream water utilities typically that benefit from that information as we are tracking releases and spills and seeing their impact along the river as the downstream users are anticipating and planning for what might be to come. We actually approached them about it because we are here on the Elk River. We are not the Ohio River, as Orsanco's namesake is, so it was a request from us to them to see if we would be able to add this as another site so that all of the water users in between, from here in Charleston and everything in between through the existing network, might benefit from the data that we are able to collect through the site. And it also provides an additional level of data for our operators here at the water treatment plant, our water quality staff, and overall it benefits our customers having that additional layer of information.
In Charleston, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters.
While it was designed to spot unreported spills, Orsanco's Organic Detection System is also used to look for chemical traces from known events, most recently the massive fire at a plastics recycling warehouse in Parkersburg. Monitoring sites on the Ohio near Parkersburg and downstream at Huntington ran a heightened schedule of tests on river samples looking for any potential compounds that may have entered the river as runoff from firefighting efforts. None was detected. The DEP has approved plans for the cleanup of the site, which burned in October. It took firefighters 8 days to finally extinguish the blaze that leveled Intercontinental Export-Imports warehouse located in the former Ames tool plant. It's expected to take several months to remove roughly 40,000 tons of burned material from the site. The company has installed fencing around the site and plans continuous air monitoring for airborne particulates during the cleanup. The company will also address stormwater runoff concerns by installing a temporary containment barrier on site to prevent runoff from entering the nearby Little Kanawha River. The burned material will be tested to determine if it contains hazardous material. Non-hazardous waste from the site will be hauled off to a local landfill. The company also plans to remove and recycle about 1,000 tons of steel from the site. Governor Jim Justice issued a check for more than $1.4 million to reimburse Wood County officials for expenses incurred fighting the fire. The money comes from the governor's contingency fund. Governor Justice says he intends to have the money paid back either by the company, IEI, or its insurers. The DEP's Office of Abandoned Mine Lands and Reclamation is charged with mitigating the environmental damage from what are known as pre-law mines. Those are mines abandoned before the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act was enacted in 1977. The act, SMCRA, as it is called for short, requires mine operators to clean up and reclaim the environment that's left behind once mining operations end. It also provides funding to clean up and eliminate safety hazards associated with those abandoned pre-law mines. But the future of that funding source is up in the air. The DEP's Brianna Hickman joins us now with more.
Greg, some of those abandoned mine works in West Virginia date back to the 1800s. SMCRA collects a per-ton fee on mined coal that goes into a fund to pay for the reclamation of these pre-law mines. Those fee collections are set to end in 2021. What happens then was the subject of a recent summit in Washington. West Virginia receives on average around $25 million each year from the fund. Reclamation projects can range from as little as $10,000 to $15,000 for a small job, upwards into the millions of dollars. If the fee collection isn't reauthorized, the DEP will receive its last disbursement of those funds in 2022. After 2022, those reclamation programs will be able to utilize what's known as the AML Trust Fund. The AML Trust Fund was established when SMCRA was created to provide funding for states and tribes to continue doing reclamation after the fee collection stopped. So if the AML Trust Fund isn't utilized for any other type of programs, the West Virginia AML program will continue to have funding through about 2035. There are a handful of bills working their way through Congress right now that would potentially use the AML Trust Fund for other activities besides reclamation of AML features.
We have over 4,500 sites that we know about statewide. Our planners and emergency folks find new sites and new problem types every day almost. It's not uncommon that going back out into the field to revisit a site that was put on the inventory back in the 80s or 90s are incomplete a lot of times. And there's various reasons for that. Lack of man hours. Some of them were done by helicopter. So you see some of the bigger features such as the big refuse piles or the high walls, but when you get boots on the ground and start walking, then do you also have portals or auger openings? You have different buildings and subsidence features. So there's a lot of other features that weren't initially accounted for. As the decades go by, the old mine workings become more unstable, so you have more subsidence prone instances that occur. And then even some of the sites that we have known about may have been a priority 2 or priority 3 that, yeah, we revisit them from time to time and we keep track of them, but they just haven't made it to the top of the priority list to be turned in as a project. One such case was the underground mine fire in Preston County this past year. It's something we had known about for a while. However, it was a pretty good distance away from any inhabitants, any houses or anything like that. Well, something within the mine changed, the fire shifted throughout and it started encroaching upon a neighborhood. So something that was pretty low priority became an emergency almost overnight. Toxic fumes and smoke and everything filled the neighborhood, and it ignited a forest fire, which produced even more smoke and more hazards to the community.
West Virginia alone still has about $4.5 billion worth of reclamation work associated with abandoned mines left to do. So finding a funding mechanism beyond 2021 is critical, and it's not just a West Virginia problem.
No. There are 31 states and Indian tribes nationwide that have AML programs, and they all rely on that funding coming in to help eliminate the hazards that they deal with every day. Even some of the states and tribes that have become certified, meaning at the time they had taken care of all their highest priority coal problems, they still continue to find new AML features, new coal-related AML features every year. Some of them are pretty costly. And then, of course, they'll continue to have emergencies and maintenance problems as well.
One of the things West Virginia and the other states are working on is looking into ways to more accurately report the total cost of reclamation projects.
The eAMLS, which is our federal database, there's some kind of programming errors and inconsistencies with that program. So there were discussions on the states being involved in some of those fixes, as well as developing an alternative reporting system for financial data and not relying on the eAMLS, which is an inventory system that has historically been used as the financial reporting system as well. And because of that, there's been a lot of scrutiny placed on the AML program nationwide, and not all of the money that is spent on the program is shown in AMLS. It's primarily just construction costs. So none of the administration, engineering, feasibility studies, and that's a big chunk of funding is not captured in that database. And if all of the data was made available and they could see the full picture of where the money has been spent, I think that would alleviate a lot of the skepticism about the program and truly show the need of the program to continue past 2021, and also see just how big of a positive change the AML program has made on the citizens of the states and nationwide.
Greg, the summit was held at the Department of the Interior in Washington, D.C. in December. It was hosted and coordinated by the Interstate Mining Compact Commission for member states of the National Association of Abandoned Mine Lands Programs. For Environment Matters, I'm Brianna Hickman.
Thanks, Brianna. We've shown you examples of AML projects ranging from treating acid mine drainage that fouls streams to fighting underground mine fires. But there's another type of project that, for the residents of isolated communities in coal country, can be life-changing. For most of us, going to the sink, turning the tap, and having safe, clean drinking water come out of the faucet is something we take for granted. But in many places where prior mining activity has eliminated sources of safe drinking water, a DEP project is extending water lines to families who have been waiting for years. For most folks living along Stevenson Basin Road in Wyoming County, hauling water has been a way of life for as far back as they can remember, but that is changing. Crews have dug and laid pipe for a new water line, more than 28,000 feet so far, and high on top of a hill along Barker's Ridge, workers built this 69,000-gallon tank to supply water for the project.
One impact that AML communities face is an impact to their drinking water sources. Our program has the ability to go into communities whose drinking water sources have been impacted by pre-law mining and provide those communities with potable water. So in situations where the community's drinking water sources are proven to be detrimentally impacted by pre-law mining, we can construct and fund construction of water lines into those communities to provide those citizens with safe and potable drinking water.
And that means about 130 families will have safe, clean water from a municipal water supply. For many, not having to truck in water day in and day out all year round will be life-changing.
Well, I mean, probably 2 loads a week, on a 300-gallon tank, and that's every week, and that's just me and my wife. So these people, bigger families, it's more water. It's just really a big inconvenience.
While some people have wells, most here don't, and it's the source that they draw from that's troublesome.
A lot of it's mine water, and that's basically what most of these people up here have had for years. And people I have talked to, they can't wait till they get water where they can turn on their tap and not be afraid to drink it. Right now, they don't drink their water that they're hauling. They just wash clothes or dishes or bathe in it, but that's about it. They don't drink it. They bring in bottled water.
Another benefit is fire protection. Adding fire hydrants to an area can save residents hundreds of dollars in insurance cost.
Absolutely, because I've checked on the insurance, and you just can't afford it because there's no fire hydrants, and we're so far from the fire department. This will definitely make it easier on everybody.
The process works like this. A group, typically the Public Service District that will be supplying the water, submits a detailed plan for the water line expansion, including things like how many people and businesses will be served, how many storage tanks and booster pumps will be needed to supply the water, and what effect abandoned mines have had on the local water supply. The proposed plan is then reviewed by the DEP and, if approved, put out for bid. Now, the cost of extending lines is significant for many reasons. Homes are often widely scattered and the terrain offers its own set of challenges. So unfortunately, the need for this program is greater than the available budget right now. Many of these communities that have waited years will likely have to continue to wait for years to come. Waterline construction makes up almost half of the DEP's Office of Abandoned Mine Lands annual construction budget. It's an annual holiday tradition here at the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, the lighting of the energy tree. This is the 5th year for the program, which demonstrates the energy efficiency of LED lighting over conventional incandescent lighting by letting folks use a hand-cranked generator to power either the large LED light display mounted to the side of our Charleston headquarters building or a much small string of traditional Christmas tree lights, and actually feeling the difference in the effort it takes. It's part of the education and outreach programs put together by the DEP's Division of Air Quality.
And it's just sort of a fun way to show people the difference in the amount of electricity it takes to power the different kinds of bulbs. and what they can do to save money and save the environment at home.
The Energy Tree celebration also included several other interactive displays to show off different ways people can help the environment by reducing their energy use. The Energy Tree display runs every year from December through early January. The photographers whose work will appear in the 2018 Roadsides in Bloom calendar have been announced. The free calendar, which is sponsored by the DEP and the West Virginia Department of Transportation, includes 12 pictures of Mountain State wildflowers growing naturally along roadways or in Operation Wildflower Beds planted by the Division of Highways. Rhonda Knight from St. Mary's, West Virginia, was our grand prize winner. Her picture of goldenrod growing next to a barn in Pleasants County will be on the cover of the calendar. The pictures were chosen from dozens of entries from around the region. We leave you now among the wetlands along the Green Bottom Wildlife Management Area along the Ohio River. On behalf of all of us here at the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
More than 800 people with one mission, promoting a healthy environment. We are the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection.